So last year, integrating an AI assistant into your platform was a game changer. This year, it's kind of table stakes, and by next year, it will hardly even matter at all. I've noticed this pattern a ton of times. It repeats itself often, and it's kind of a blind spot for some founders and early stage teams who are building something new. Essentially, this shiny new frontier feature appears in the market, everyone's amazed by it, and everyone rushes to ship the exact same thing. So you're dunking tons of resource, loads of effort into delivering something, and your competitors all have the exact same idea. And this isn't just a cycle that's unproductive, it's actually kind of detrimental. It's eating into your competitive edge because it's distracting you and taking resource away from the thing that's actually going to 10x your product. So this thing that you thought was going to propel your business forward actually ends up setting you back. So I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do to get ahead and stay there in the face of these kind of frontier shiny features distracting you, and where your focus should be instead. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Lashana. I'm a product marketer. I help businesses, founders, early stage startups figure out how they need to go to market and how they can grow. So this pattern that I mentioned, like I said, it's super common, but it is a little bit of a blind spot for teams who are kind of figuring out how they're going to develop something that's going to change the game. So essentially, you have this cool new feature and everyone's obsessed with it. So one of my favorite examples is obviously the AI wave we're all currently experiencing. Notion, February 2023, they shipped their in-platform AI assistant and it blows up. Overnight, they get 2 million signups. It's a huge deal. And then later that year in November, Microsoft does the exact same thing with Copilot, embedding it in the whole Office stack. And then 3 months later in February of 2024, Google does the exact same thing with Gemini. And so within 1 year, this thing that was this major headline feature is kind of now just this checkbox feature. It's lost its ability to help a company differentiate. And we've seen loads of AI assistants pop up in places where we're kind of like, who asked for this even? So this is kind of the cycle, and it's not just AI, it happens in other places. For example, passkeys and cybersecurity. GitHub in 2023, again in September, launched passwordless login and made it available for all their developers. And then just 3 weeks later, Google did the exact same thing with passwordless login and made passkeys available for millions of consumer accounts. So again, before you even realize it, within 1 billion cycle, this feature has become very commonplace. And the danger of that is it's not that a million companies have it. If other major companies have it, customers start to expect it and you lose your edge. It's no longer the thing that's going to win market share. It's not going to win their attention. It's not going to keep it, and it's not going to guarantee their loyalty. And when I say there are tons of examples, I could literally talk about them all day. It's one of my favorite things to look at. It's a bit sad, but I love looking at what made companies fail and what made companies kind of fall out of favor with their audience, because it's the best place to gather learnings. And I am not kidding. If you pay attention, there are a million examples. One of my favorites, or probably least favorites, because I was so sad when this happened, was Snapchat and how Instagram/Facebook cloned the story feature, turning it into this generic social staple. Or even if we're staying on the social media topic, Clubhouse. Remember, it was invite only. There was this audio chat frenzy. People were connecting. And then before you know it, Twitter Spaces and so many others copied within months. And the usage of Clubhouse quickly collapsed. I don't know if you remember the whole beginning of swipe glide typing back in 2009, I think it was. And there was this magical drag to type keyboard effect. And then it kind of got built into all these normal systems that we use every day on our phones. And then swipe was actually discontinued in 2018. Something like Touch ID, fingerprint unlock, was a major deal when iPhone did that in 2013. But unfortunately, the sensors kind of did become more of a commodity across Android, and interest really shifted to Face ID. I don't know if you're a millennial like me, you'll remember Nintendo Wii and the amazingness of these motion controls and the fun, casual, playful element of kind of this waggle gaming craze. And then Sony Move copied it, and then Kinect copied it, And before we knew it, novelty wore off. One of my favorites, if we go back to the 90s, my favorite era, was TiVo. The ability to pause live TV was a major head turner. And this kind of DVR technology, cable and satellite boxes were able to copy very cheaply. So TiVo had to pivot to this weird licensing model. And then netbooks, you know, this was the tiny cheap laptops that were major in like 2006, 2007. And every PC maker saw this and was like, okay, we're going to do the exact same thing. So then we had this boom of tablets and it killed demand. So within a few years, netbooks just didn't exist anymore. So don't get me wrong, you can't just dump a feature because everyone else is doing it. You know, especially with things like AI or certain cybersecurity trends, you do have to remain competitive, but you don't have to spend all your resource and loads of time chasing this thing that's really commonplace, because essentially it's not going to differentiate you and it's not going to set you apart. So what you want to do is figure out how to get parity for cheap. Everybody's using OpenAI or Anthropic for an AI layer, you use them too. Everyone's using Auth0 for Auth or Stripe for payments, you use them too. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, you just need to get on the same level, and then you need to figure out what your real competitive edge looks like. So when it comes to figuring out that competitive edge, this is where I think some founders can go wrong. The challenge is it's always going to be in your customer insights. And people think they have enough customer insights. They think, I know who my customers are, I know their jobs, I know their workflows, I know their age, I know what they do, I know what they care about. Worst case scenario, people think they know their customers because they think that they are their customers. So they say to themselves, oh, I'm a dev, I'm building a solution for devs, I know what they want. But here's the thing, anecdotal insight is very valuable and that has a place in the insight story, but it's not the whole story. And you just don't know what you don't know. So you have to be committed to getting obsessed with understanding customers. You have to figure out how to create a process that is going to allow you to even debunk your own beliefs and your own thoughts and feelings about what your customers want. Because ultimately there will be insights hidden in their attitudes and beliefs and their behaviors that are unknown to you, that will be deciding whether they work with you or not, whether they use your solution or not, whether it hits the pain point that they're feeling or not. So you need to get obsessed with your customers. You need to figure out the insights you can gather from observing their behaviors, deciphering their attitudes, really studying everything about them to notice the patterns that keep showing up, to see where the same things are being repeated in different ways. And typically, these are not shiny, new, trendy features. Customers aren't sitting around saying, oh, I'd love my CRM to have a bit more AI necessarily. They're actually thinking about their pain point. And normally it's things like speed. They want things to be faster. How can you get them to their win or their desirable outcome in fewer steps? Another common one is always going to be reliability. People load on tons of features. They want to make more bells and whistles, but people just want the base product to work really well. So maybe uptime is your biggest metric right now. Maybe that's your biggest success. How do you become the platform that they can always rely on? How do you demonstrate that your platform will not break? And sometimes it's something as simple as just niching down into one task that your customer or audience does often, that they prefer to do in one place. Maybe you can become that place. So instead of adding more features that may be cluttering their experience, can you focus on doing one thing better than everyone else and perhaps owning more of that action or task, eliminating the need for them to build a stack? And if you're uncertain of what it looks like when something has kind of gone from headline game-changing feature to more of a checkbox, uninteresting feature, you need to pay attention to the narrative. If you're noticing that people have kind of stopped talking about it, that's a red flag. If you see that 3 of your competitors have shipped the same thing, it's not a game changer. It's not going to differentiate your business. It is now parity work and you should treat it as such. So to keep you on the right track, here's a framework that you can apply. Start with assessing whether you are attacking a problem or whether you are focused too much on technology. Write the problem statement before mentioning any tech buzzword. If it feels awkward and it's difficult for you to write out a problem statement without mentioning tech, it's probably hype. Also, prioritize retention over adoption. Early daily active user spikes do lie. Stickiness after 30 to 90 days will tell you the truth. Put it behind a paywall to test it. Would at least one segment pay extra for this feature today? If not, it's likely parity fodder. And you need to dog food it. Do your internal teams use it? Has it become critical to their workflow? Do they complain when it's down? If they don't care, your customers probably won't either. Consider how easy it will be for a low resource competitor to clone this exact core value in a hackathon. If it's easy for them and that's possible, you don't have a moat. It's not a differentiator. Also, think about if it's a single feature risk. When features aren't bundled into a broader workflow, they are easy for rivals to strip and mine. And finally, you have to establish your ruthless kill criteria. Work with your team to define what metrics would need to be hit within X amount of weeks to stop it from being abandoned. Do this before you ship the MVP. Shift your thinking from can we build it to should we build it? And also think about if you're relying on secrecy to build your moat rather than really advanced high quality capability. I've combined these checklist items and some additional insight into a free resource that's linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope this was helpful. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.